And today I want to talk about ways to making love last. Love for your partner, but maybe even more importantly, developing love for yourself. Because again, if you do not learn the tools for loving you, you'll never have a long-lasting, intimate relationship with another person. So key number one is communication. Now, that may not be some new concept for you, but how many of you have received feedback from your partner, a friend, or coworker that you are not the best at communicating? Or maybe you don't even know how to receive feedback because it's a one-way channel of communication and you're not a good listener. Effective communication is the foundation of every relationship, but specifically in intimacy. And there is one big thing that most people do not do in order to become a great communicator. And communication has nothing to do with what you say. Communication has everything to do to how you listen. And most people do not have the skill of listening. It is a skill. It's something I've been working on my entire life. I still get to work on listening. And I have done over 11 years of interviews that I've recorded, over 1,500 episodes. I've interviewed so many different incredible minds in the world, and I still need to learn how to listen better. I still interrupt sometimes. I still add my 2 cents when someone's talking. I still do those things. Now, yes, that is natural conversation and flow. You're ebbing and flowing in a conversation. But the key to being a great communicator is not how funny you are, how interesting you are, what you say, how smart you are. It's how well you listen. This is everything in relationships, everything. I feel blessed in some ways because my biggest adversity and challenge as a kid was my fear of speaking in public. I could not stand up in front of an audience of 3 or 4 peers and speak for a sentence without feeling like everyone was going to laugh at me. I couldn't get up in front of the class and read aloud because I had dyslexia and struggled reading. I just was always worried about how people were going to think about me based on what I said. So this was a big insecurity and fear that I needed to overcome. And that became a great gift for me because I was afraid of that. So it taught me how to just sit there, observe, and listen. And really pay attention. What are people saying? What are they not saying? What are they saying with their body language, their facial expressions? What are they wanting to say that they should be saying? And the more I would observe this in different social settings, from elementary school all the way into the business world, to interviewing some of the top people in the world, the more I'd experience this at live events, experiences, all these different social dynamics and places that I would go. The more I would do this, the more I would realize that listening is the key. It's the key to communication. And the funny thing is, I would go to events in my early 20s, and I would somehow get in the room with big leaders, thought leaders and authors and speakers, and somehow be in the room with them. And always be thinking to myself, man, I'm 10, 20 years younger than this individual. I have no experience compared to what their experience is. They are just so much smarter than me. And so all I would do is ask them a few questions and look at them and pay attention. Pay attention, and then I would ask a follow-up question. And I would do this for 10, 20, 30 minutes. And if we were at an event, and I would essentially be asking a few different questions for a period of time, and at the end of this conversation, the person would always say, man, you're just such an interesting person. Like, this has been a great conversation. And I'm like, I didn't even say anything. I just ask questions. But if you want to become one of the most interesting people in the room or in a relationship, become the most interested person in the room or in that relationship. And what that means is be interested and curious about other people, especially in your relationship. And communication, most people, they might do this in the first 6 months to a year, but then they stop doing this. They stop being interested. And then you lose communication. So be willing to ask questions. Be willing to be vulnerable and open up. Be willing to pay attention. This is one of the keys to lasting love is communication. And communication is not all about speaking. It's about listening, observing, and being curious. We've had several different social dynamics, individuals, communication experts, facial expression experts on the show. So make sure to check out some of these episodes that we've had that can give you tools for increasing your communication in relationships. And again, by going to your partner and checking in on them, by asking them how they're doing and actually listening to them, this goes way better than just speaking what happened to you all day long or complaining to them. So be willing to listen and ask questions. The second key of long-lasting love is vulnerability. Now, ladies, you may be thinking, yeah, I've been looking for a vulnerable man. I've been looking for a man to open up, to show me his emotions, and all the men I find are emotionally unavailable and they're closed off and they're just ego-driven. And listen, I used to be that way, so I know how it feels. But I didn't have a safe environment with me. That's why we've all got to be doing the work so that vulnerability opens up and is available for us. But ladies, if you want a man to be vulnerable with you, you need to first create a safe environment that they can be vulnerable. And the challenge that I've faced in past relationships is I have been vulnerable. I've showed emotion in terms of like sadness and tears, and I've been made fun of when that happened in previous relationships. And I'll tell you what, that doesn't make you feel safe. That doesn't make you want to show your emotions or be vulnerable ever again. It makes you want to toughen up. It makes you want to say, never again am I going to be open and real and vulnerable with this person because I don't feel safe. And if you want to shut a man down, then don't let them be vulnerable. Make fun of them, tell them never to show their emotions, and you will get a one-sided man. That man may be strong and he may be tough and he may get things done, but when you want someone to really feel intimate and vulnerable with, you've already shut that out of your relationship. And that's going to create distance in a long-term relationship. So vulnerability is key number 2 to lasting love. Now, I'm not saying every day you need to be vulnerable and sitting there eye to eye, staring at each other and crying and weeping over something every single day. That's not vulnerability. Vulnerability is authenticity. It's being real. It's expressing how you truly feel. But most people don't express how they truly feel. They feel like they've got to act a part. They feel like they can't truly open up. And that really will hurt you. So again, there's a lot of strength that comes in doing the internal work. There's a lot of strength. It comes in facing the different traumas that you might have, whether they're little traumas or big traumas. But this is the work that you're going to need to do in order to be vulnerable. And it took me a long time. So you got to also give people grace because some people's traumas are so deep that they don't want to face those things right away. And you can't force someone to face these things. You can't pressure someone to be vulnerable if they're not ready. So also take a breath and accept the person and meet them where they're at. It took me 25 years to really start opening up about some of the biggest traumas that I had, from sexual abuse and abandonment and other feelings and emotions that I felt really triggered by that I wasn't willing to talk to people about until I felt like enough was enough and I had to start doing the work. And it was a 10, 11-year journey from that point that I've been constantly evolving, doing the work and growing. And I still have a lot of work that I get to do, and that's okay. But again, don't force and pressure someone to be vulnerable. You know, Dr. Bernay Brown, who we've had on the show, amazing interview that we had, is well known for discussing the power of vulnerability in relationships and how it fosters intimacy and deepens connections. And I love this quote by Bernay Brown. Vulnerability is not winning or losing. It's having the courage to show up and be seen when we have no control of the outcome. Man, when you're vulnerable and you have the courage to show up and be seen and not have control of what is going to happen next, how is someone going to respond? How am I going to feel? Man, that takes courage. And it may seem like a small or simple thing, but that takes emotional vulnerability, emotional courage. I can go on the football field against the biggest man head to head, smash my head against them full speed, tackle them, score touchdowns. I could get in a fight with anyone and take care of myself. I can do whatever I need to do. That's courage. That wasn't courage. There might be moments where I need to be able to defend and protect myself if there's a life or death threat. But most of the times, it's an ego threat. It's a threat to our ego and our image that causes us to fight, to confront, to pick a fight with someone, and that doesn't serve us. We're confronted by ego. That's not courage. Courage is actually rising above that and knowing I am strong and capable enough to handle any situation because I'm training and developing myself. But it doesn't mean I need to use these anger or aggression to fight in any situation. She says it's not about winning or losing, right? It's about having the courage to show up and be vulnerable without knowing the outcome. The challenge is you've got to be making sure that you first attract a partner who is vulnerable with you before you get, committed. Date the person, get to know them, make sure that you can be vulnerable in the first few months of dating them before committing to them and getting married to them and realizing, oh, there's no vulnerability here. We've always been surface level, because that surface level is not going to support you in thriving for a long-lasting relationship. Maybe it works for a year or two, but eventually that's going to get old. Key number 3, respect. If you do not respect your partner, if you do not respect the life that they've chosen, then that means that you haven't accepted them. That means you've chosen a partner that you do not accept. And if you don't accept them, that means you judge them. It means you're judging them that they need to make a change. They need to become someone different. They need to do different things and have different beliefs and have a different way of thinking and acting and different careers and all these different things. That means that you are essentially above your partner. You think that they need to change in order to make you happy and meet you where you're at. No, my friend. That is a lack of respect. And that is a lack of vulnerability and emotional courage that you had early in the relationship. Because you didn't ask the questions. You didn't listen. Like we talked about in key number 1, communication. You didn't listen fully and ask the courageous questions to understand, is this a person that I respect? Is this a person that I respect their values, their vision, their lifestyle? Is this a person that I respect on their whole past, as opposed to holding on to the decisions they made in their past and the things that they're ashamed of? Can you embrace those things and accept them, knowing that they've overcome them, knowing that they have made mistakes in the past, just like you, because you're not perfect, and you've learned to respect how they overcame their shame, their insecurities, their doubts, their fears, maybe the mistakes they've made, maybe the flaws that they have. And if you can learn how to accept them, then you can learn how to respect them. And a lot of people don't have respect because they haven't created clear boundaries and agreements. They haven't communicated, these are my boundaries, these are my agreements, this is what I want to do moving forward.